So when I log into IXL, it immediately takes me to this recommendations page. You are not going to start with anything that's down here. You are going to go to the 5 or however many suggestions from your teacher. When you press in there, right? So like, let's say pick trig, ratios, sine, cosine, and tan, right? These are the 4 skills that I want you to have down pat by the end of the week. So I look at this problem. And when I think of sine, cosine, and tan, I immediately think of SOHCAHTOA, right? This is my little acronym, my mnemonic to remember sine, cosine, and tan and what sides we care about. So for this problem, it's asking me to look at the cosine of angle F. So this right here is angle F. And so when I'm looking for the cosine, right? Cosine says adjacent and hypotenuse. Right, so my adjacent is always next to the angle, right? It's not this diagonal side that's next to the angle, that's always the hypotenuse, right? So this 12 is the adjacent because it's next to the angle, and this 37 is the hypotenuse. And it's the hypotenuse because 1, it's the diagonal side, and 2, it's the longest side across from the right angle, okay? So I know that my cosine is the adjacent, which is 12, over the hypotenuse, which is 37. And these problems ask me to write as a proper fraction, improper fraction, or a whole number, right? And it wants me to simplify my answer. So if 12 and 37 have any numbers in common, I can take them out, right, and reduce that fraction. I don't think they do, so when I type in my answer, because it's a fraction, I press this button, and I do 12 over 37. And when I submit, it tells me I'm correct. Okay, so if we want to do another one, this one is looking for the sine of angle S, right? So again, we're using SOHCAHTOA. Right, so if this is angle S, we're looking for sine, right? And so sine is always opposite over the hypotenuse. So my opposite side for my angle is this 12 because it's across, and my hypotenuse is this 13 because it's the diagonal side and it's across from the right angle. Okay, so I end up with the sine of angle S is 12 over 13. So now we're looking for the tangent. Of angle T. And so if I'm looking for the tangent, I'm looking for the opposite over the adjacent. Right, so angle T, opposite is always across from the angle. So that's where I get that 30 from. And adjacent is always next to the angle, where that 16 comes into play. And it's not 34 as my adjacent because 34 is the diagonal side across from the right angle, and that's always the hypotenuse. So I get tan of T equals 30 over 16. Okay, and so again, it asks me to simplify. And so 30 and 16 both have a 2 in common, right? So if I divide both by 2, I get 15 over 8. So I don't enter it as 30 over 16. I enter it as 15/8. Okay, so you can see my SMART score is going up as I keep doing these problems. So if I want to go back to another recommendation, right? Let's say I want to do Pythagorean theorem and its converse. I remember that Pythagorean theorem is a squared plus b squared equals c squared. And so if this is a word problem, we're going to highlight what's important and we are going to draw it out. So an oak tree is 16 meters tall and a bird is standing on the ground 12 meters from the tree. If the bird flies directly to the top of the tree, how far will it fly? So if I draw this out, right, I have a tree, and I have a bird, right? The bird is 12 meters away, and the tree is 16 meters tall. And I need to figure out what this distance is, right? So we know that our hypotenuse always has to be c. So I end up with 12 squared plus 16 squared equals c squared. Okay? And so if you need to use a calculator, that is a-okay. Right, like let's say that we go into Wolfram alpha. So I get 12 squared plus 16 squared. Right, that's 400. I end up with 400 equals c squared. Well, the square root of 400 is 20. So my answer for this hypotenuse side C is 20 meters. Okay. So I go in here and I enter 20 meters. I press submit, and it gives me to the next problem. Okay. For the next problem, in Wild Grove, the library is due south of the courthouse and due west of the community swimming pool. Okay, so first thing I'm going to do, we don't know our north, south, east, west. Okay, we're going to draw a little compass. So it's due west of the community swimming pool. So the library is due south of the courthouse and due west of the community swimming pool. If the distance between the library and the courthouse is 15 miles and the distance between the courthouse and the city pool is 25 miles, how far is the library from the community pool? So first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to write library. We'll call it lib. Okay. So it's due south and west. So it's due south of the courthouse. So we'll write CH here for courthouse, and west of the community swimming pool. Okay, so the distance between the library and the courthouse is 15 miles. The distance between the courthouse and the city pool is 25 miles, and we need to figure out what this side, we'll label it B, is. So I have 15 squared plus B squared equals 25 squared. So again, if I need a calculator, totally okay. I pull up Wolfram Alpha or my phone, right? So 15 squared is 225. And I like showing you in case we don't know where I get the numbers from. Okay. And 25 squared is 625. So we need to get b alone. So the next thing I'm going to do is subtract 225 from both sides. I end up with b squared equals 400. So when I take the square root of both sides, I end up with b equals 20. So the distance between the library and the community swimming pool is 20 meters, or 20 miles. Okay, so draw out all of the word problems on a piece of paper if you can. And the goal is that you will master these skills, okay? So hopefully this helps for today and for tomorrow. And by the end of the week, we should have mastered all of these skills.